What's the best job out there? Oklahoma, Notre Dame, USC, or LSU? USC number 1, LSU number 2. Oh, I'm sorry, Notre Dame number 2, then LSU number 3.
Would LSU grad Marcus Spears agree with that? ESPN NFL analyst joining us on the program. Good morning, Marcus. Best college opening in the past week is where?
Louisiana State University. But first of all, Dan Patrick, let me say this, man. I'm almost in kid frame. You're a legend to me, brother. So thank you for having me, man. Like, I gotta say that before we get into this interview. I'm geeked up. I just texted my NFL Live crew. I was like, I'm about to go on Dan Patrick's show. Don't nobody text me. I'm not responding to anything. I'm about to talk to the legend. What's up, my brother?
Oh, and thank you for reaching out or trying to reach out to say congratulations for the Hall of Fame. I did get that message, so thank you. That was very nice of you. All right, so now you got to remove yourself from LSU, and you got to be an analyst here. The best college opening is USC, Notre Dame, LSU, or Oklahoma?
It's LSU, Dan. And listen, here's the reason, okay? Because I want to be on the West Coast in that beautiful sunshine where you get daylight for a long period of time. You don't have to wake up super early being a guy from the South and on the East Coast. But here's the bottom line. 3 coaches have won national championships at LSU. So we all know that it's doable. That's number one. Number 2 is you in the center of where all of these 5 stars, all of these big time players come from. And in the state of Louisiana, which I don't think gets enough credit for how many really, really good players come out of that state as well. And then too, when you think about Brian Kelly and you think about his move, but more importantly, you think about LSU and where it is, obviously people say, well, Nick Saban is at Alabama. Why would you want to go coach there? 2 years ago in 2019, Ed Orgeron fielded a good enough team to beat Alabama. It's very few places that you realistically believe that you can do that. And LSU is one of those. So that's why I feel like it's the better job out of them. And for a coach to leave Notre Dame and go to LSU should tell you what the number 1 coaching job is in the country.
Well, I also think that Brian may have thought, let me be the all-time leader in victories at Notre Dame. I've done everything I could possibly do, and it's quite a resume there. And he turned 60, and I don't know if this is a midlife crisis, but he's probably you gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse, and probably said, hey, I'm going to pull the ripcord, and I'm gone there. And I understand Lincoln Riley as well going to USC. With Oklahoma coming to the SEC, I would want to be in a conference where I thought I could stand alone. And Oklahoma did that in the Big 12, and I think he's going to do that in the Pac-12.
Yeah, Lincoln made a phenomenal choice. And then, too, when you start thinking about what he's been able to do from an offensive standpoint, I know it's been said a lot. The quarterback at Alabama is from California. The quarterback at Ole Miss is from California. So Lincoln Riley has enough name cachet. He has 2 former Heisman Trophy winners and 2 former number 1 overall draft picks. You don't think he's going to sit in a quarterback house and that's going to be enticing to stay at home in California and have the potential of doing that at USC? And then, too, that program outside of Pete Carroll is looking for, in recent history, is looking for the next staple. And I believe Lincoln thinks that he can make that type of impact and potentially become the guy that becomes synonymous with USC football. And so all of those things are aligned for him. Not to mention, look, he was phenomenal at Oklahoma, but Bob Stoops is going to be remembered at Oklahoma. We know Barry Switzer is going to be remembered as the guys at the University of Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley has a chance to go to USC and really carve out a niche of being one of those names, like I said before, DP, as synonymous not only with the ability to bring that program back to where they once were with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and all of those guys, but also be the young coach that can be there for a long time and continue that cycle going out there on the West Coast. I thought it was a tremendous move for him. I would have loved to have, let me say this, I would have loved to have Lincoln Riley at LSU as a fan because of his offensive prowess, and that's something that we saw with Joe Burrow that could take hold at LSU. But Brian Kelly, man, it may not be sexy. It may not make you throw a parade. But if you really deep dive into the substance of it, man got a 75% winning percentage over his coaching career. That ain't nothing to shake a stick at. And he's going to be afforded better players probably than any time ever in his career to recruit and have the chance to put out there on the field. Man.
Yeah, it's not a bad consolation prize for LSU. You played for Nick Saban at LSU for 4 years.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea at the time that Coach would go down in history perhaps as the greatest college football coach of all time?
Hell no, DP. I didn't know who Nick Saban was. I hadn't watched a Michigan State football game ever in my life. And it really came down to them in Miami. And Miami obviously was the program. My freshman year, they won the national championship. That was with the phenomenal team with Ken Dorsey and Sean Taylor and Jonathan Vilma, all of those guys. And I'm sitting there as a freshman at LSU saying, damn, I could have been a national champion my freshman year in college. But I knew this about Nick Saban through the recruiting process and then through my first year of playing. Because our first year, we had a really good – my freshman year had a really good season. Went and played in the Sugar Bowl against Illinois, won, I think, 10 or 11 games that year. But you could see that – let me say that you could believe that what he was giving us, what he was teaching us, how he was setting us up, if it didn't lead to winning, if it didn't lead to a national championship, I clearly couldn't figure out what the hell you needed to do in order to win one. Because the level of attention to detail, the coaching staff that he put together, and not to mention, DP, Jimbo Fisher was on that staff. Will Muschamp was on that staff. Kirby Smart was on that staff. Derek Dooley was on that staff. Like, so Adam Gase was a what you call the guys?
Grad assistant?
A grad assistant, a GA on that team. So it was, at the time, we had no idea that these guys would turn out to be this way, but we knew we had good coaches. We knew that every game we played in, we felt prepared and had a chance to win. And eventually it culminated in winning the national championship my junior year. But we had no idea that we didn't know who Nick Saban was. But and this too, for all of the questions about will Brian Kelly fit in, DP, you and I know it, everybody listening. You win, you fit in. I don't give a damn who you are or where you come from. If you win, you fit into whatever culture needs to be fitted into.
He's Marcus Spears, former NFL player, ESPN analyst. You can see him Monday through Friday at 4 Eastern with NFL Live with Dan Orlovsky, Ryan Clark, Keyshawn, Mina Kimes, and he's also on Get Up First Take weekdays on ESPN. I was watching last night with Russell Wilson. A year ago, they're 12-4, Marcus. And we're letting Russ cook. People are talking about MVP. Now they're 3-8. How's this going to end?
Russ is out of there, DP. You could see it. I even said it this morning, man, when I was going to Get Up, is when you, like, the tone in that press conference after the game said a lot to me emotionally. It looks like Russ is spent. It looks like Pete Carroll is spent. And listen, it's been a great run, but things run their course. I'm an LSU fan. When it was time for Les Miles to go, it was time. It didn't mean that he didn't have an amount of success at LSU, but it was time to go. And that's what it looks like to me. It's almost similar to what we see with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last year, they start running off wins early in the season, and you could start to see it tail off. And now we're coming back to the conclusion that they held on to being probably too long. This team is not really built to facilitate a veteran quarterback going and having an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. So with Russ, you look at Seattle, and yeah, they have some talent. Like Metcalf is talented. Tyler Lockett is talented. The offensive line has their issues, which he addressed. Defensively, brother, they can't stop a damn nosebleed defensively. So when you think about Russ, you think about these quarterbacks that's competing for championships. Aaron Rodgers is going to be right back in the mix. Tom, obviously, in Tampa, right back in the mix. You look at these situations with these veteran guys, man, they got to get around teams that really has a great setup and great coaching and offensive philosophy. And we've been throwing it out there. And the Saints, to me, would be a good location because of the synergy that I believe he would have with Sean Payton Not to throw Jameis to the wolves, he was doing fine, but Russ is an absolute upgrade. But to me, it just felt like like finality after losing to the Washington football team. And then from a game breakdown standpoint, DP, how vanilla and generic was that offensive plan? Like that, you line up DK Metcalf in the same spot. You can't get him targets. We see the deep throws to Tyler Lockett. Everybody gets excited about that. But in what world does a Russell Wilson-led offense not have the ability to put up 24 points in a game to be able to win the football game?
But Marcus,
and you can't convert third downs.
Would you move on from Pete Carroll if it meant you could keep Russ in Seattle?
Yes. If Russ told me that I need to have a new infusion of offensive philosophy and a different way to approach it, absolutely. Because listen, I love Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, one of my favorite coaches. But what I was saying earlier, DP, he's ran his course in Seattle, man. And his philosophy doesn't seem to be taking hold there. And we got to let the Legion of Boom go, brother. We got to let it go. It's not there anymore. This team offensively is very generic. They don't have the same run game they had with Marshawn and the things. I don't think people realize how good the Seattle Seahawks were when they were winning Super Bowls. And we've gotten so accustomed to Russ making up for the things that they lacked and still being able to play at a very high level. This team hasn't really been what you would consider, even last year, you brought it up 12-4, but did we really think they were a Super Bowl contender? I don't think at one point I said the Seattle Seahawks are a Super Bowl contender. It was all about letting Russ cook and how good he looked. But ultimately, I think this thing has just ran its course. And if Pete goes and they get the right type of guy, potentially it could keep Russ there. But Russ, his family life, all of those things I think are going to factor into him maybe wanting to change locations.
If I gave you a free shot at Keyshawn Johnson, Ryan Clark, or Dan Orlovsky?
Dan Orlovsky. Yeah. And I try to saw him in half, DP. I got to be honest with you. Okay. And I love him because he's my brother. But I would try to saw him in half because he has that little stinking arrogance of a quarterback that sometimes comes off that you just want to you just want to make them know that you really aren't an athlete. You had a really good arm and you could throw, but you can't get away. And I would want to saw him in half. I absolutely would. And I love him. I love him, like him, have stayed at his home. His kids are my nephews and nieces. But if I had a shot on any of them, it'll be Dan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
not
there
you,
with you.
Dan Patrick, but Dan Orlovsky.
What if I threw Greeny in there? You want to take a pop at Mike Greenberg?
Yeah. I want to see how long he'll be in the hospital.
Hey, it's great to catch up with you. We hope to have you back, and thank you again for all the kind words, Marcus.
My man, thank you, man. Appreciate it. It was fun, and have me back. Because if not, I'm going to talk about you bad on some platform.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. You won't be alone in doing that. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus.
All right, my brother.
That's Marcus Spears, ESPN NFL analyst, and you can see him on NFL Live Monday through Friday at 4 Eastern with the host, Laura Rutledge.